and welcome to another episode of FooBar. Today is a video that you requested a lot, and that's me coding in real time. This is not a live stream, but it's kind of, I will be developing end-to-end a migration of a MERN application to a serverless environment. If you don't know what a MERN application is Mongo, Express, React, and Node. And I have been working on this application in other videos. So this kind of video is part of a longer series of videos. In this playlist, in this series of videos, you will see shorter format videos where I show you a specific thing and I show you something about a particular service. And then you will find these longer format videos where I will be focusing on development and how to do this migration end to end. Because this is the longer format, I will not spend time explaining what is Cognito, what is CloudFront. I will just use those services, and if you want to get to know more about those services, you can visit the playlist and learn more about it. Because the building of this application is so long, this video is going to be split in some parts, and in the description box you will find the playlist after the parts are published where you can find them all. Let's get started with the coding. I want to do a small disclaimer. You might hear a fan in the back. I hope it's not very annoying, but it's very, very hot. I have all my windows closed and it's like 30 degrees in Finland. So I hope that doesn't bother you. So the first part we are going to work on is I want to show you the app that we are going to migrate. I didn't build the app from scratch. I took it from the internet. In order for you to build it yourself and learn, I didn't want to build everything myself, because then you will ask me, can you make a tutorial on how to do that? And this is not my type of content. So I find this really cool playlist where the person Sean Ann is building this application. I made some changes, but base you will find there. So if you want to build this and you want to learn how to build it, I recommend you to check his channel and his playlist. I will link it in the description box below. Because this is not a React, a Mongo, a Express tutorial, I will not get into the gist of it. I will just imagine that you understand, but if you don't, check this video. So the code for my application that I will be showing you today, it's already in GitHub. You can access it, you can download it, and I will be starting from there. So also the Git repo is linked in the description box. So this is the application we are going to start with. This is our application that we are going to migrate. And this application is built like this. So we have in the same server, the React.js and the Express and Node application are hosted in the same machine. And then we have the Mongo database in a different server. This is quite a normal kind of setup that we will find in many MERN applications. You can also have your React in a different server and your Express in a different one. That's up to your configuration. When you see the migration, you will see that we will split everything into their own server. But this is how it's layout. For this particular demo, I didn't want to host it in the cloud or anywhere because again, this is not a development on how to do EC2 or how to do containers or how to do whatever. So I have this all running in my local machine, but because this is quite easy to port to the cloud or to on-premise or whatever, you can have it anywhere you want. In my particular setup, I have my server and web in, as I said, in one server, that is my computer. And then I have my Mongo in a container, in a Docker container that is running, is here. And this is basic Docker container that I downloaded from their official site, where you basically have a Mongo instance image and you just can create collections and things like that. There is nothing weird here. It's a small database with some collections on it. And in order to get started with this, I would recommend you that you check the README, because in the README of the application I will start working on, there is a data folder. And here you can find all the data that is going to go into that database. So you can find the dump of the different collections that we need in the Mongo app in order to get started. So that's something I would recommend you to use in order to have the same setup. So you have the same users, you have the same products, you have everything. Also in this data folder, you will see the images that I'm using for my site. So you can also get it from here. Also in this README, you can find a step-by-step on how to configure this application and get started. So I will not get into that because I have my application configured. I have here you can see, this is the React Shop app, and I just run npm install in the client and in the backend, and then I have configured my dev file with the properties from my MongoDB. This is my local MongoDB. So Marcia is my username, this is my password, this is in localhost, and this is the port. That's what you need to get started. Then in order to run this, after you have done the changes in the database and created this upload folder with all the images as it's mentioned in the README, you can basically run npm run dev, and this will start the application for you. So boom, here is the application. So after that, we can see our website. Don't blame me, it looks ugly, I know, but well, I just took these images from the internet. Shh, don't tell anybody. So basically this website has the landing page with all the products. You can load more products, you can filter by different categories, you can do some kind of filtering by price, you can type here some filtering, and all that is performed in the backend. So this is good. Then you can purchase an item. So if you open an item, you can purchase it, and then you will see it here in the cart. You can remove it from the cart. You can add it to the cart. You can add as many as you want, and then you can purchase all the items here. If you would like, you can add something like Stripe, but again, I'm not doing that. You can check the history of purchase data here. And we have also a registration here, and this registration is something also implemented in the backend. Like basically, we have built hand by hand the authentication mechanism. So if we want to log in with the existing user, it's test@user.com, and then the password is tomate1234. tomate1234, and that's the password. So you log in and voila, you see everything. You can create new users and all of that. So the code is it's very simple. I told you we have the server and the client here, and in this package JSON you can see the script that is the dev script that I'm running, npm run dev, and you will run the front end and the back end. And the front end, the client, is the React application, and the backend is the Node application. So that's kind of the basics of this. So now let's migrate the database. So the first step is to migrate the database. So I mentioned you that we have these 3 tiers, the React, the Express, and the Mongo. And the Mongo is inside a container inside my computer. And I want to do that in a serverless way. And there is many ways to do that. We could migrate this Mongo app to a Dynamo thing and then refactor the whole application. But one of the premises I wanted to keep when migrating this application is to try to modify as little as possible the code and the application itself. I want it to be a lift and shift migration as much as possible. So in order to not do that and to keep it as simple as possible, the migration, I would like to use a service like Mongo Atlas. So Mongo Atlas is like the offering from MongoDB for serverless kind of databases. So in order for getting started, you need to create an account with Mongo. It's a different account than your AWS because this is hosted in the Mongo site. And then after you configure that, you can configure your database and then basically get started. So I already have an account and I already have done basic configuration of this. So we can get started. So if you go to Atlas, after you created the account, you will need to create a cluster. So I have my FooBar cluster here, and there you will need to create your collections. I don't have any, and I want to add my own data. So this is where we are going to get that information that we have in that README file and dump it here. If you have done changes to your Mongo database in your container, you need to create this dump file and then you can upload it. So I will get into my data folder and here you will see the dump. This is the files that are in the GitHub. Again, if you have modified the data, you will need to create this dump again, but I will not do it. So in order to do this, I need to do the Mongo restore command, and this is the command. So you will do Mongo restore, then the URI, and this is the URI for my cluster. You will find it in your cluster, and here is basically your username, your password, and the URL for your cluster, and then the dump folder, that is this one. And this will restore everything that is in the dump folder into your Atlas. I will do this without showing you because my password is there and I don't want you to see it. So I will do that in a sec. So now I have executed that command and I can refresh and I should see the free collections in my Mongo database. So that's good. Now our database is migrated. But in order for this to work, we need to change our configuration to use the right endpoint. Because if you remember, in here we have the server and we have the config, and in the dev we have this local configuration. And we don't want that. We want to use the real Mongo URL. So I will change this to look something like this. I will not show it to you because I don't want you to have it, but I will put the right password and I will show you that we are connecting to the right database. After you update that configuration file, then you need to run npm run dev again in order for the connection to happen, and don't do it twice. So let's clear this. npm run dev, and then this will connect to the right URL. So here we have this in our Mongo. So that's good. We can upload something and see how this works. So let's upload some image, random image, test image, and these images will be here forever. So test, and then let's put a price that is very high, and let's put it in other category and let's submit it, and poof, this should be now in our Mongo products. We should be able to see it. See my collections, let's see my products, and here we should see now the one that we just uploaded. Here it is. So this test image test, so basically we are going to the right place. We can see here that it's uploaded, and when we upload, it's going to this upload folder, should be here in our local server. So good, our database is migrated. So good, now we have migrated our Mongo application into Atlas, and we can basically stop the container. We don't need it anymore. We can basically stop it. That's not necessary for this to work anymore. So that's good. We can move on to migrating the other part, that is the fun part, the Express and the React. So what I want to do here is I want to build a CDK application to hold all the kind of backend itself, the Node application, and the Amplify application for this. So basically, in a nutshell, I want this to look something like this. It will be more complicated, but like in a nutshell, I want to migrate my Express and Node into a Lambda function, and I want to migrate my React app into Amplify. And I want to host all this infrastructure and build all this infrastructure using AWS CDK. And for that, we need to start with AWS CDK. I will build the initialized application and we will start building our kind of basics there. So let's create a new project. So I will start from there. Make dir, and we will call it my MERN migrated app shop. I don't know. And then we go into there. And then we do CDK init language TypeScript. And this will create the project. And I need to update my CDK. So let's do that. And then I can open this in Visual Studio Code. Good. So this is our initialized kind of CDK app where everything is going to live. I will have the bin here is where we are going to define all the stacks. And then you will see by the end of this migration that we will have a lot of stacks. I will try to separate everything its own individual stack, so everything is simpler and you can just deploy the part that you need to deploy and not the whole application if that's the case. So it's faster and it's cleaner. But this stack we don't need, so I will remove it soon. Because this is not what we want and we don't want SQS or anything like that. So we are going to create this stack. So the first thing I want to do is to migrate the backend into this stack. Why? Because I want this backend that we have in our original file here, this server, this to be what is inside the Lambda function. So that I want to copy it into my CDK app, so then I can say, hey, whatever is in this server folder, put it inside the Lambda function. So first, you might be a little bit confused, and that's totally valid, what we are going to do. So we are going to use this Lambda adapter. So in order to do this migration, I'm going to rely on this open source component that is called the AWS Lambda Web Adapter. So what this does is this basically grabs any web application that has an HTTP interface, and you can throw it into a Lambda function, and then basically from API gateway, function URLs, application load balancer, you can invoke that Lambda function as if it was a web application. So we will grab our backend, our Node app that it just has these endpoints that we are very familiar with. So let's see, is this started? Yes. So if I go here to Thunder client and I do a post, so here you're doing localhost 8080. So this is the local host for my backend, and this is just an API for my backend. This just returns something. And we want to do the same, that if we have here, I don't know, a function URL, and then this API, then this will return exactly the same thing without needing to build this again. So we just throw this into a Lambda function, and then we type exactly this command, not localhost, but the right URL, and we get the same result. So that's what we want to do, and that's why I want to basically copy this folder into my CDK application. We don't need to copy it, we can just upload it somewhere else, but I think it's nice that everything is in the same place and makes my life easier at the end of the day. So let's do that. So the next step is to basically grab everything that is here except the client and put it in the CDK application. So in order to do that, the first thing I will do is I will remove the node modules because I don't want it. So I will go in here and I will open a terminal and stop my server, remove node modules because it takes a lot of effort to copy and we don't want that. And then we will copy everything except the client. So that have in mind. Remove then the Visual Studio Code. The client, I will not remove it, but I will not copy it. And then we want to basically move all of that into our CDK application. So I will create here a new folder called backend app, and I'll open this in a Finder, backend app, and then I open this in the Finder as well. So this is easier to copy without the client. So we have so I open both things in Finder, and then basically I just grab everything except the client and I copy paste it here. So this is my backend app now in my CDK application. That's good, but how we know if it works? Let's try it. We have the server now configured with the Mongo in the cloud. So that's good. And what we need to do is to go backend up, and then we can do npm first install. So things get installed. We need to bring all the dependencies that we remove. So in order to start this, let's see it's backend. So let's do npm run backend. And this should basically start our backend here. And then we can go to the Thunder client and open that URL that I just showed you a while ago. And if this start, then it should return everything. So that's good. We have here all the products. So that's good. This is working. But what we need to do now is to make this serverless because now it's running in our local machine and I don't want that. So this is great for testing, but not for what we want. So what we are going to do now is to create a stack and create a Lambda function and use the Lambda adapter that I told you about. So the first thing we are going to do is to remove this stack that I don't need. So let's delete it. And then I will create a new one that I will name backend app stack. Good. So this is my new stack that we are going to get started. So I will import the basics for this. Hop. And then I will basically create everything like to get started. And here what we need to do is to build this Lambda function. So we'll get here in a second. So we want to create this lambda function, and how this lambda adapter works is that it's using a layer. I have a video on the details of this, so I will just go through it. So the first thing you need to do is to bring that layer. Here is important to have the region dynamic, because layers depends on the region, so that's important. And then what we want to do is to create the lambda function. So this is what we are going to start building, this function with some properties. This is all going to get very messy. The first one is to use the right runtime. Then we want to have the backend app. So this is the code that is getting into our lambda. So backend app. So you can start seeing it here. Then we want to have the handler, that is the run.jsh, that we don't have here. And this is needed for the lambda adapter. So this is a script that basically will tell the lambda adapter how to run this application. So basically npm run start, that's the command that needs to run in order to get this started. So that's good. Then we need to set up some environmental variables, and for that we are going to use these ones. The lambda except wrapper, this is part of the lambda adapter configuration, this as well. Then we want the region, so this is part of the region, and then we will close this. We will add more things later. Then the memory, and then we want a couple of configurations. So we want the layer, this is important, we just created there. The timeout for the function, I put it to 2 minutes, but you can have it shorter. And then we want tracing to active, because we are going to do things with tracing later on. So let's import all these things because it's complaining. So we need to import all these things from a lambda. So now it doesn't complain anymore. And why you are complaining here? Because you're not this type of bracket, you're this type of bracket. Okay. Then we want this application to get invoked using the lambda functions URL. I have a video on that. And basically we are going to create that lambda function URL. So we are going to add an URL with some course headers. And that's important. And then we will export all those values that we need later on. So this is more or less the basics of our function. We will add a little bit more things later. So we need the exports, and here they are. And then we need also to define this interface. That is the stage. So you can see here when I'm defining all the resources that the name of the resources have this stage. So when we have multiple stages in the same AWS account, things don't collide. So this is something I'm passing as a property. We will add more properties later, but for now, this is the properties that we need. So this is good. Now we can basically call this in our bin folder. So here we need to remove this that doesn't exist, and we need to remove this that doesn't exist. And we will start by creating a new application like is here, and then we are going to create the backend app that we need to import. And now you can see here that there is a configuration.stage that is complaining, and this is my configuration. I have a configuration file where I will be putting more information like the GitHub repo later on and things like that. So here it's complaining because we don't have it. So let's build that. My configuration file, the configuration file should not be in GitHub. So that's something important. You will find an example of it in the repository where you can find the whole application build. So it's somewhere here. CDK migrated infra app. So here you can see the configuration file. You should or not. There is no demo. Well, I need to add it there. But basically this configuration file will have all kind of information. So for now we want to just have one property, that is the stage, and we might have a different configuration for different stages and things like that. So this is the one for now. So you can still see that it's red, and that's because the TypeScript configuration. So we need to add one more thing in here. That is the resolve JSON module, and then we save, and then this should disappear or not. Yes, now it disappeared. And then this should be done. And I'm missing some brackets because I always miss some brackets. And then this should basically put this backend application. So when we deploy this should put the backend application in the cloud. You can try it and see what happens, because I don't know if this will work. Well, I know it won't work. There is a couple of things that we need to do first. So if we deploy this will not work. There is a few things that we need to do before doing that. The first one is in our index.js, in our backend application. Here we have the setup of CORS. So we are going to set up CORS twice now. If we have this in Lambda and we have this inside the Lambda, so this will not work. But we want this CORS when we test locally. So we need to do a little bit of a cheat here. So I will do something like this. If the stage is local, then CORS local, and we configure it local. And this config stage, it's something that I'm going to have here. And then I will have in my dev file as well. So in the config, you will see an example. I will post here because I don't want to show it. So this is what we want to have, that stage to be local. So I will add that in my dev. So now if we are running this locally, then it will kind of get the CORS right from the Node application. But if we are not, then it will let the function URL do the CORS. So that's good. So we want to deploy this from the main CDK app, because we are going to deploy the app. If you have never deployed CDK, I recommend you that you bootstrap. Well, you need to bootstrap. So CDK bootstrap your account and your region. I already have done it for my account, so that's something you need to do. Please don't forget. And then you just run cdk deploy. And let's see what happens. So I realized I forgot one thing. So I told you that we need to change the configuration to local, but we never changed the configuration here. So it's been used in the local configuration. So we want to use the prod configuration, and that is this one that we don't have here. We don't have anything yet, but let's set it up right from here, and let's put here prod. So wait a minute. I would not like to put here the Mongo string that I've been putting in my web because, well, this is the cloud and we want to use some kind of secrets. So let's change a little bit our Lambda configuration first before we try to deploy again and fix this. And for that, we go back to our backend and we go to our Lambda. And I said I want to use the secret manager, so I will do that. So I have my Lambda function here, I have my adapter here, I have my function URL, and I will add permissions to this Lambda function to access a secret. So we need to create a secret first, so I will go to my AWS account and to secret manager. I already have my Mongo URI created. So this is something you will need to do. And this is the ARN. So the secret value is basically a plain file with the string, so you know. And this is something I need. So good. So we can go back to our Lambda function now. And we need to give permissions to these Lambda functions to access this secret. So what we are going to do is after the Lambda function, we are going to give access and we are going to create a policy and we are going to give permissions to whoever has this policy to read this secret to get the value. So that's what we want to do. We need to import these things. And then here we want to get from the config file the ARN. So we can do that. Remember the config file that we just created. So here I'm going to add a configuration here that says the backend. So config.backend and then Mongo URI secret ARN, and this is the ARN of my secret. So you can hear here. So that's one thing I want to do. And then I also want to close the brackets. I always forget that. So that's good. And we also need now to import that config file in our stack. So that's good. And now that we have that, we need to give that function, that policy. So we have this other command that will attach this policy to the role of this function, and then voila, now the function has permissions to access this secret. So that's what we want to do. So now we have in the secret the URI for our Mongo connection, and then here what we need to do is to basically get the secret. So it's not as simple as that. We need to do some method here to get that URI. So we are going to write a function like this that will bring that value from the secret manager. So this is the Lambda function accessing that secret. And for doing that, we need to use the AWS SDK Client Secrets Manager module that will basically bring that for us. And then we need to initialize that secret manager client with the right region. And this is coming from the environmental variables that our function has defined here. So now things are coming together. So when we start this backend, it will look and say, hey, the stage is prod, you need to invoke this, and this will get that value from the secret manager. So it's not visible anywhere, and this is a secret value. So this is good. I know it's complicated, but I think this is way cleaner. After you have these active, things are very independent and no hard-coded there, so you can basically forget about them, and it's safe. So now we should be able to deploy. Let's make sure that we are having the right key. No, we don't. We need to put prod here. So now when we deploy, it goes to prod and it does the magic to get the URI. And then it will connect because before it was trying to connect with the dev and it was exploding in our face. So let's clear this and run cdk deploy and let's try again. So now this is deployed. Let's try again. I think the URL has not changed. And now we should not see it explode, I hope. Let's see. So we have duplicated and let's remove that. Let's remove that and let's spray. Internal server. Yay. Let's look at the logs again and see what happened. Oh, yeah, we forgot to install the AWS CDK. You see, that's why I don't do live coding with me, because I keep on forgetting things and it's tough. So we need to add the SDK to our backend. Important things that are important. So let's go to the package JSON and add the AWS SDK secret manager thing. By the way, we are using the AWS SDK free that allows you to just import the right module. So yay. And then we do backend npm install. Want to install that up again. And then we deploy. Yeah, let's do it again. You suffer with me now. Okay, it's again deployed. Eventually we'll get this working. Let's try it again. Boomba. Usually the first time it takes a little while to get everything set up, so that's why it takes a while, and it will take a while for you. You will get different errors than me. You'll forget to do different things, and you know, things happen. But don't panic. That's the deployment and the development process. You wanted to see this. I always avoid these problems to you, and I have everything already deployed and pretty. But well, you know, everybody suffers, and this is something we cannot really test locally, and you will see that a lot of the migration we do locally, and that's the magic of this setup. But when you are working with the testing the CDK and making sure that everything works, at least the bare bones, it's sometimes you need to deploy and you need to test and you need to check the logs until everything is properly set up. And then when everything is kind of done, then good. So now we have another error because, again, Marcia has not read the code. And we will see that in a second. So we will see that there is some Mongoose error here. That means that there's the connection to the database, because we are getting that already in a promise way. So we need to change that. And this is how I do things. Like I'm sad. But let's do that. Let's change these things. I already have done it properly. I like to leave the errors so you see them. So the first thing we want to do is to create this. And now we leave the local configuration as it was before. We connect and blah, blah, blah. And then if the stage is the cloud, then we are going to use, we are going to get the URI from the config, and this is using the promise, and this is what it was complaining about. So now it should work. So we are doing the connection, and then we should be fine. And again, these are things that we cannot test unless we are in the cloud. Most of the things we will be able to do locally. So don't panic that, oh, this is horrible, this is Yes, I know, but it gets better. This is just the setup, and I think the most tedious part. So another reason why this might not work, and this is important for the Lambda adapter, is that you don't have a root in your web application. So you need to have in the index file this root in order for this to work. So if you don't have this root, then the endpoint will not work. So if we deploy now, we should be able to get this working. Because now we have configured the Mongo, we have configured how the database connects, we have put everything in the right place, we have the root, the initial root, we have everything, we have done all the work. So now we are ready for this to work. And if it doesn't work, I will be very confused. So let's deploy and let's come back when this is ready. So now this is deployed. Let's grab the URL, and then we can go to Thunder client, and we can make sure that the URL is correctly set here in the get products. We want to make sure that we can get the product, so we put that post, and then we do the API products get product, because this is an endpoint that doesn't require any authentication and it's work. So that's good. We have here the what the get products returns. So now our backend is ready. So we can go to our AWS console. We can see that there is the application, and then there is the function, and this function is configured. If we wait for a while, we will see the monitoring and everything appear. So with that, we have moved the backend into the cloud, but it doesn't mean that it's working. So there is many other things that we need to do. So now what we need to do is to migrate the client from our original app into the cloud. We have migrated the server, and now we need to migrate the client. And in order to migrate the client, we are going to host this React application in Amplify. If you don't know Amplify, well, there's many videos in my channel about it, but we are going to use the feature of hosting that Amplify provides. Amplify provides many things, hosting web applications, creating the backend using an Amplify CLI. It also has some libraries that we are going to use later, but for now we are just using the hosting capability. So in order to do that, what we need to do is to host this client in its own repository. So we will have the infrastructure of this Amplify application created. We will create it with our backend, our CDK application. So here we are going to create a new stack. That's something we are going to do in a moment. We have the backend app, a stack, and then we will have an Amplify stack that allows to create this Amplify application. And then we will connect that through a GitHub repository. So now the backend and the backend infrastructure and the client will have different life cycles. So we can have a front-end team working on that, doing code changes, and every time there is a code change, the front-end updates, and then we can have backend people working on the backend. So let's create that. So for doing that, the next thing we are going to do is create a new repository. So let's clear this up and make this big. So now we have the original repo, the React shop. We have the MERN, how it was called, the MERN migrated app shop. And now we were going to make another one that is going to be React app. Always something good and clear. And then we can go into there and open it in Visual Studio Code. and we can open it in Finder. So let's create a file. So we can open this in Finder and have it here. And let's go to the original client so we can copy paste it. We go here, and the first thing we are going to do is to remove from the client the node modules. So we don't need to copy a lot of random files. We will generate them later. So let's remove that. And then now we can open this in Finder. And we can see the two folders. We can remove this file, we don't need it, and we can basically go into client and copy everything. Hop. And now basically we can close this React app shop because we don't need it anymore. Everything is somewhere. So we go back to our React app. And here you will find the app. So we have the package.json, we have the public folder, we have the source, and we can basically get this started. So npm install, and we will install all the dependencies, and then we are ready to start working on this. So the next thing we want to do is to create a GitHub repository for this. So we are going to GitHub. We are going to my profile or to your profile. And we are going to create a new repository. And I will call it whatever I call that app. It was called MERN React app. And this is a private repository because this is what is going to be connected to Amplify. And well, unless you want to make it public, you can, but I think it's, for this demo, I will make it private because I might destroy it later. So good, I need to just select my owner, and then I'm ready to create a repository. And I will basically connect the folder I just built here with that. And then we can check that there is something here. Good. So here is our application. But still, this doesn't work. So now we have put this in the GitHub repo. So what we need to do now is to go back to our CDK project. Let's go there. Let's close all these things. And let's go to the CDK application. And here we are going to create a new stack that is called the Amplify stack. So this stack, what we'll do, it will create an Amplify application in our infrastructure that will be then hosting this GitHub project. So let's do that. So I will do some imports. These are more or less the same. We are importing things from this alpha library because the Amplify, I think, still not in CDK. Let's remove that and make sure. Nope. So we need to install this library, and we can do that. Yes, Amplify is still not part of the version 2 CDK, so I imagine that is coming soon, so we might need to fix this in the future. So that's good, now we can use it. And then the next thing we have here is the config file. You already saw it in the backend stack that we use it for some configuration. You will see it in a moment why we use it. So then we will start creating the stack. So this is basics of the stack. We will export this Amplify app ID that you will need it later. And we will have some properties. And in this case, the properties are a few properties, not many, but we will need some. So we will have the stage, and we have the server URL, that's the URL from the Lambda function that we just deployed. So that's what we are getting that there. Then we are going to create the Amplify application. And this one we are going to create like this. So the Amplify application will have this name, Amplify React Shop, and it will come by GitHub. So here we'll need in the configuration the owner and the repository name, and in our secret manager we need the GitHub token. So let's start with the configuration first. And in the configuration we have created the array that we have here, the stage. We have here the secret ARN for our Mongo URI. And now we need to also add the front-end information, or React information, as you like to call it, but well, I'm very good with names. And here we need to put the repository name, and in this case is the one that we just created, the MERN React app. And then the owner, and in this case is my GitHub user that it's coming here. And then because we are going to take things from here, and this is a private repo, we need to give a token. And this token is something you can create from your settings, and there is here some way that you can create the developer settings, and there you can create a token that later you will put in your secret manager. As we put the Mongo URI, we will have the GitHub token here. So that's something you need to have in place in order for doing this. So that's that. Then how this is going to work, this is going to work with environmental variables. So when you create an Amplify application that is hosted, we will serve it from Amplify. This Amplify application will host whatever is in that repository. And then because in this React application, we don't have, we have not set in stone what is the URL for the backend. We have it in a configuration. We will pass that server URL from the environmental variables. So when we deploy the backend, we will pass by this property the URL from the Lambda function, and we will put it in the environmental variables here. So in this way, then we can call the backend, we know the URL, and if it changed, then it's good. Then we need to tell in which branch we are going to do this, and this is in the main branch. And then we need to configure some redirection, because this is a single page application and we need to configure that. If you want to know more about that, then there is a link that you can learn more, and I will give it to you. So I will put this link in the description of this video, but basically these are the redirects for single page web apps, and this is what I'm adding here. So this is something here. This is the trick. There is kind of escaping there, so if it doesn't work, might be that. And then we are going to create a couple of CloudFormation outputs that we want to see. That is the name of the app, the Amplify ID, and the URL of the app that we will need in order to connect. So this is our Amplify application. So what we need to do now is to add this into our bin, basically when the application, the CDK application starts, and we need to do it after our backend, because, well, we need the server URL in order for this to work. So we will import our Amplify stack that it's coming from there. So let's do that. And then we are going to pass the stage and the server URL. So now we have our Amplify application with the stage, the server URL, and we have then this application that will get the whatever is in the GitHub repo and host it in Amplify. Will this work? We will only know by running this. So let's try this out. Let's do CDK deploy. And now, because we have two stacks, we need to deploy a little different. You will see that it will complain because now we have two stacks, this CDK application. So we can either deploy this one, or we can deploy this one, or we can deploy all. And I will do deploy all because just in case. So when you deploy, make sure that you already have this one in, that you have the React application already in GitHub, because this is going to fetch it, and if it's not there, it will fail. So that's important. Also make sure that you have the two secrets in place as well. So that's something you need to have in order to do this. So let's accept these permissions changes, and let's wait for this. So now our application has finished. So we can go to that URL. And nothing happens. Why? Because we just basically deploy this application, this backend infrastructure, but the frontend has not yet been deployed. So let's go to Amplify. And now we should see that we have the Amplify React Shop app here. And this application is here. We can see the environmental variables. There is the region, and this is the URL for the Lambda function. But this application has not yet been deployed. There is no build. It says your build is being queued. If it doesn't start, just click the button below. And because I'm very anxious, I will click the button below. And that will start the deployment. So basically, this will get the project from GitHub and apply the build process, and then it will verify. But I already can tell you that this will fail because we are missing one important aspect in our application. So we have put this project, this one, into GitHub, but this project, we don't want to change it a lot, but it's totally non-aware of where it's hosted. It doesn't know what to do with that server URL that we are passing. It doesn't know anything. So we need to do one more change in this project in order for this to work. So let's go there and let's add this file called Amplify YAML. So this Amplify YAML is our configuration file, and this is basically the connection between this React application and the Amplify place where this is hosted, the hosting. So here we are going to pass some build instructions, and these build instructions are pretty simple. So let's add those build instructions, and I will explain them to you in a second. So basically here we are adding the environmental variables. So you can see here that there is the region and the server URL. React will prefix everything, and this, it depends on which type of framework you're using. If you're using Vue, it will do the same. Will prefix everything as React app, and then the name of the environmental variable that we have passed from our backend. So this is why we have this name. And then this is the environmental variable inside our kind of backend. And this will be the put in a kind of environmental file. We don't have one, but this will get created by React. If we want to test this locally, we can do and assign these values, the region and the server URL manually. And these will kind of work. So if we do in this environmental file, here we put the URL for the function, and then we do the region, then we can test this locally. But we will get there in a moment. For now, this is needed in order for this to work. So now with this file, we need to add this to GitHub, git add, git commit, adding amplify conf, and then we git push origin main, and boom, it should be now in GitHub. And here we see it. And now we can go back to amplify and let's see what is going on. So now it's grabbing that last commit and starting automatically. So I have not done anything. So this is the magic of the CI/CD that Amplify has in place. When you host an application there, every time you do a change in GitHub or in the repository that you select, it will start the configuration in the right branch. So you can have multiple branches, and then it will build, and then we can go to this URL and check it out. So let's wait for it and see what happens. So now it's finished doing whatever it was doing, the deployment, and let's open this and see what happens. So good, our web application is there. Let's see if it's calling the endpoint. It doesn't seem, but that's something we will fix in a moment, so don't worry too much. So we can see here that the endpoint that is using it's wrong. It's basically using its own URL. So we need to fix that in our application in order for this to work, or at least to start working. So that's something we can do next. Here is that we can do this fix on our local machine. We can go to this MERN React app, and we can then run npm start, and we will be able to test this. So this is now starting in our local, and well, the URL is even worse here because it says localhost. So let's do some changes in our application in order for this to work. So I mentioned you that we have this .m file. So here let's put the URL of the Lambda function, and we can basically get that one from the environmental variables, for example. And when we are running on local, this is the file that the React application will check. So this is something we will not commit into GitHub, so that's important. So one thing we can do after we add this in here is go to the configuration. And we can go components, config, and here are the server routes. So we can go and create a new route. That is the server URL. And we can basically put it in front of everything. So in this way, we are kind of calling the right endpoint. So let's try that. One thing to have in mind is that the end file is with this. So we need to remove it from here as well with this backlash, so we are not repeating ourselves. And then we can try this out. Okay. Now we can see get products is using that URL, and that's good. So that's good. We can push this into GitHub and see how this works. So git add, git commit, changes to config, git push origin main. So in that way we can also test locally. So this is nice and handy. So we could do way more development in this way, but I want to show you this fix. So now we have our kind of basics. It should be working because we know it's working locally. Things are still broken, so bear with me. We will need to fix a lot of things, but let's wait for this to deploy and then we can look at those things. So now this is deployed. Let's go back to our URL and see how it works. Boom, it works. And it's quite fast. So we can go and check the get products, and now it's using the right URL. If we click in a product, this opens, but there is some issues with the authentication. So this is something it's not yet done. And we will cover those things in the second part of this video. So for the first video, what we did is I show you the app, what it was locally. We migrated the database, we migrated the backend, lift and shift. We created the backend with the Lambda function that is hosting this. We have created the Amplify stack, the Amplify application. We have then migrated the front end into a GitHub repo, its own application. We have done a little configurations here and there, but really we have not changed the code. In the second part of the video, we are going to focus a little bit in more structural changes. We need to get the authentication, because this authentication doesn't work. And we will talk more about that later. We will add a storage, because these images are inside the Lambda function, so we cannot upload images. So you can see here, for example, if I do image, this image is inside the Lambda function, and that works because we have limited amount of images. But if we want to add new images, we should redeploy the whole Lambda, and we don't want to do that. We will add a CloudFront in order to get this very fast, even faster than what is now. So this is pretty nice. And we would add some observability. So all that in the second part of this kind of series.